Welcome back. We are on day 2 of the Stellar Meridian conference live in London. We've been meeting up with developers, founders, entrepreneurs, 800 attendees at the conference overall. And joining us now to discuss is Stellar Development Foundation Executive Director, Denelle Dixon. Denelle, you're the one running the show here. Thanks for joining us.
I wish I were running it. I'm not running it at all. Like, everybody else is doing all the hard work, but it's just been so great to be here. So thanks, you guys, for also joining us.
Thank you. So tell me some of the highlights for you so far at the conference.
Yeah, I mean, it feels kind of like a whirlwind. It's one of the conference, the Meridian conference is sort of a forcing function for us to kind of pull everything together that we've been working on throughout the year. And so there's lots of announcements in terms, like today we just announced USDL live on Stellar, which is going to be on Stellar by the end of the year, and that's amazing. Like having Paxos's asset there, and we're so excited because of what it also offers to all of the users out there, particularly outside the United States, since it can't be purchased or used there. But also, I was just looking at the clips that were going on beforehand and just thinking about the non-custodial wallet that MoneyGram put out. From my standpoint, like that is a year in the making, because they actually did a pilot last year here at Meridian. And then Tala's wallet, Tala has done such a great job in Peru getting their wallet out there. And I think that they really love it because it gets you into market much faster. And so that was a really cool thing. Stripe has been here to talk about their announcement, MasterCard. It's just really cool to see all of it. But mostly my favorite part is just the developers.
You know, I feel like you and I speak every 8 months or so for the last couple of years. And every time there's these giant movements in what Stellar has been doing. You know, you specifically highlighted MoneyGram's wallet, Tala's wallet. We spoke to Decaf and their wallet. Yesterday, you were on stage with Idris talking about the Akuna wallet. And it started to click for me, and I want to get your take on this, that wallet is almost too small a word, right? And that we're all, because there's a lot of wallets being talked about here and really at every conference. But really, wallets are just gateway financial applications that are focused on the regional needs, and then often those regional needs can become global. And I think we have to shift our focus to be like, no, these are just the new fintech companies that are coming out there. And is that the right or wrong take?
Well, it's so interesting because I think about this a lot from the standpoint of my prior life when I was at Mozilla. We had the browser be like the window to the web, right? It was the way to get in, the way that it could actually, it was a window and then it moved to the door where you could actually open it and then you could access everything that was available on the web. And that was such an important innovation to be able to leverage that and to have that be open and available to everyone all over. Wallets are very similar in terms of sort of the opportunity to get to that financial freedom. And it is the doorway and this massive arch into this like global awesome system that is the network. And so I do think that they're fintech companies. They're actually financial services providers. The component of that that's slightly different and why it's more like the browser is because it's opening up the world of this decentralized network. So they don't own, control, or have custody of your assets or your keys. And that is like such an amazing piece of this because we're still keeping that decentralized nature that's really important to blockchain and the value to the individual. And yet we have these institutions that are going to provide you this easy way in. And so I think that single point of entry is so crucial, and then the users sort of get to do what they want.
As of the second quarter of this year, I saw that total addresses on the Stellar network surpassed 8.4 million, growing by over 400,000 addresses within 1 quarter. Real world asset supply hit almost $800 million. Or rather $600 million at the end of June and has continued to increase. So I'm wondering, where are you seeing the growth on the Stellar network?
Well, so though I love those numbers, but we need them bigger. We need them to be more and more and more. We need to see total value locked on Sorbonne to be $1 billion. We need to see all of these things happen, and we need to see it happen quickly. So I love it, and I love the growth. And we're seeing tons of growth in addresses because we're seeing all these wallets really move on to the network, create opportunity for their users, and then grow the user base really quickly. And so we see AirTM, it's a wallet on Stellar that's grown really quickly over the last year. We see Decaf growing, Vibrance growing. So when I think about like what and Meru, it's a wallet in South America, it's also really growing. So when I think about like what's important here, addresses are really crucial because you're seeing that you're touching humans. But when you see the need to have assets that are interesting and available to everyone, that are sort of, some of them are going to be permissioned, and that's okay for some populations, but then the permissionless ones are even better. Those are the growth numbers that I want to see too. I want to see Soroban get to the billion TVL because it's a vanity number. I'm just going to be super honest. It doesn't really show anything, but you need that. You need it to show that like this, there is so much happening on the network. We don't do the glitz and glamour, but we can do that a little bit with TVL.
Okay. With Soroban, it's a smart contract platform. It comes later in the game, which in this sense has advantages, and you're able to design from the experience of other chains, but it's late to the game. So I'm wondering, how are you attracting developers onto the platform? Are you trying to steal them away from other chains or grab them from Web 2?
It's a good question. So I think that probably a little bit of both. I mean, I think that the developers that are going to come to build on Soroban are not necessarily the same developers that are going to develop on Ethereum. We're going to get some that there's a crossover, but if you think about what is Stellar purpose-built for? It's purpose-built for payments. It's purpose-built for usage of the assets that are issued there. It's built for like everyday financial services. And so when we think about that, that's not necessarily all of the folks that are building on Ethereum. So we're going to grab some from other chains, and we already see that. And they can build on all chains. Like that's the beauty of it, is that you can actually be able to make that quickly. And because we used languages that are common languages, it made it a lot easier for developers to be able to learn and build there. But also, we're going to grab some from Web 2 too, because you think that that's part of like when you think about like a traditional financial infrastructure, they're still in the Web 2 world. We're going to see some of that come over. A lot of focus on payments, a lot of focus on getting value to the end users and leveraging that value in different ways. So,
I think there's something that we've seen as a trend in our conversations, which is we had Tala, we had Onafreak, we had MoneyGram and Stripe. So you have all these companies that are traditional financial services that have been around for quite a while, who are all now exploring utilizing this technology, both as needs for specific regions, but really it sounds like they're starting to think about, is this the future of our company? Which is, I think, a really exciting place to be.
Yeah.
And I'd love for you to just talk a little bit more, like, are we on that cusp where people are starting to understand that the future of money is now fully digital? How that's going to happen is still out there. But are you seeing the larger companies and the entrepreneurs coming together to say, no, we all have to be building in this?
I think that we're really close. I'm not sure we're on the cusp yet, but I think we're really, really, really close to it. And the reason why that is there's a few things that sort of still have to happen to move everybody there. And I think that I mean, whether we like it or not, the United States and not having regulation there is an issue that we need to sort of get to so that we can actually open that up to more traditional financial infrastructure. But I do think everyone sees it, and all the players want it to happen, and they want to build on it because they see this is another rail that's going to take us to like another spot where we can actually offer services to more users and create more opportunities. And I think so we're close. We're very, very close.
In March, I saw the STF announced a $100 million in grants will be offered through the Soroban Adoption Fund. So I'm wondering, if I'm a developer, how do I get the grants? Are there certain projects that you're more privy toward, and how much would I get?
Yeah, so the Soroban Adoption Fund some of it is actually pushed through the Stellar Community Fund, so the community actually decides, which is awesome. It sort of takes us out of it. They can range from like $10,000 to like $150,000 to $200,000 worth of XLM for those, and so it's great to see that. And then some grants are going to come through more traditional of the business side, and so it's relationships. And we also do RFPs, so requests for proposals, where we say we want to see this thing be built, and so then we'll give grants for that, and that also comes out of there. So I like to say that we're sort of agnostic as to what people are building, unless it's like when we need to see infrastructure, when we need to see different pieces, and we want the ecosystem to build instead of us, which is a really, really big belief of mine. So it's kind of everything.
What kind of projects are popular among the community then?
The community loves wallets. The community loves.
If you think a lot of wallets.
Yeah, when you think about like what wallets do, again, they sort of open up the world of Web3 and Stellar to end users. The community also, we have a lot of infrastructure that's really analytics companies and whatnot that have come on to onto Sorbonne. We just actually announced, I think yesterday, Dune. So when you think about the need for these types of security and infrastructure pieces on Sorbonne, I think that we've created an audit. We have a lot of audit relationships there. And I think that the reason why those are all important, so when you're auditing the code to make sure that that's secure, these are all crucial. And I think that we'll probably have like the most security around like the Sorbonne infrastructure because of these different companies. But everybody kind of likes that because then they feel like, okay, we're approaching this from a very mature standpoint and create an opportunity that way.
So Denelle, when we're sitting here a year from now in some probably undisclosed location.
I wish I knew the answer. I would tell you.
What are we going to be talking about next year?
I think we're going to be talking about over $1 billion TVL on Sorbonne. And maybe I won't talk about it as much because it won't be a thing. Again, vanity metric, but important. And I think we're going to be seeing these wallets that are already, I think, growing and have a ton of traction. I think they're going to be more connected to Sorbonne and offer more of those everyday financial services there. And we're going to see, I think, more assets that are issued on Stellar from the tokenization of real-world assets piece, which I think is crucial, again, to your point about bringing other infrastructure on or other industries on to Stellar. That's a really key way to do it. And I think it opens things up in a different way. So I think we're going to be talking about those things.
Yeah. We didn't get to touch on it with our coverage, but Franklin Templeton, they have mutual funds tracked on the blockchain.
It's not even tracked on the blockchain. It is issued on the blockchain. So this is a really important distinction. Like this is their ledger for Franklin Templeton's money market fund, Benji, and it's amazing that they're able to do what they did and that they did it. They started so early. So they started in 2019. So they filed with the SEC and they started moving forward through that. They're like the first ones that got it out there. They're pretty remarkable in terms of what they're doing, and I think we're going to see more from them. They already are allowing, and they want to be able to have those assets sit sort of outside the Benji wallet a little bit. So these are good things in terms of like the permission. It's permissioned, but they're going to let it float a little bit more outside. So I mean, I think that that's sort of the future. If you think about yield-bearing assets like USDL, we're going to see a lot of those types of assets be out in the world because it's super valuable to end users to be able to have yield-bearing assets and sort of risk-free yield. And I think that's a really important
And I did see on the agenda real estate on the blockchain, which many folks have talked about, but have not exactly implemented yet. So
it's an interesting thing because it's complicated, I think, depending on where you sit from a legal standpoint to do that. But Red Swan is an organization that's doing it in a lot of the global south, as well as I think that they actually are doing it even outside those areas. And I'm fascinated to see how this works. But I love the idea of tokenization of real estate because it gives people an opportunity to own a thing that they can point to. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty awesome because not everybody has that access today.
All right. Well, Denelle, I'm excited for next year.
Thanks
so much for joining us.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
All right. After the break, some quick final thoughts before we wrap up our coverage of the Stellar Meridian conference in London.